Welcome to the end of season number 2 here in the Salt Lake City franchise. We are 38-73 with just about 2 months of the season left, and we are improving from a season ago where we finished with 45 wins. And now we have 38. We are very, very close to our win total a year ago. Now, we are 29th in batting average, which is still bottom 5 from what we were last year. We have minimally improved here, but really the pitching was the big improvement. We are still ranked 27th in ERA, but it's much lower than what it was a season ago. But we did have our second draft last episode, and we drafted some really good prospects, starting with the number 1 overall pick, Oliver Gonzalez, an 18-year-old catcher with a pretty good bat and has a bright future since he's only 18, but 86 potential. We had probably one of the best overall players in the second round drafted to Salt Lake City, and Terrence Madlock. He is as pro-ready as you can be in this draft. And then in the third round, we drafted two-way player Enrique Reyes, who is 19-year-old and has a fastball that can get up to 98 mile an hour, and he plays both ways. We also acquired Mariano Casto in a deal at the deadline, trading away Chris Taylor and getting maybe our closer of the future. And that opened up an MLB roster spot for a guy we acquired from the Milwaukee Brewers last year in Luis Lara, having a really good season at AAA, hitting .300, slugging .483. And for some reason, his potential has declined, and it's probably because maybe when he was traded to our organization, he thought he was going to be at the MLB level, and maybe that's kind of hurt his potential a little bit. So we will end up moving him up because I don't want his potential to go down even more, and he will make his debut today as we will take a round trip around the organization looking at a lot of our prospects and focusing on players in this episode. Ryan O'Hearn is one of those guys that has been really good for us here in Season 2 and a big reason why we are at the win total we are at this point, especially improving on last year. But today, right now, is all about Luis Lara, the outfielder in the Milwaukee Brewers farm system, now traded away to possibly be our right fielder of the future. Here he swings and misses at an inside fastball, and he does have a little weakness to his game, and I think it's that swing and miss element. He does have that swing and miss element to his game, and he does like to fish at some pitches out of the zone, as you can see right there on that high fastball. But I think he has a lot of potential with his bat, and we will give him an opportunity to prove what he can do in these last couple months. And that will determine whether or not he will stay at the MLB level next year, or we will have to maybe go with another direction and bringing in maybe a free agent outfielder. But here in this game, he's 0 for 3 versus the Angels on the road. And now he gets his last at-bat, and it's an 0 for 4 with 3 strikeout game in his MLB debut with Salt Lake City. He already has about 89 at-bats to his name. But we fast forward to the next series, and we will face Yoshinobu Yamamoto on the mound here for the Dodgers. And here is Lara finally getting a nice piece of hitting down the left field line. And he does have decent speed with 79 also. And he has his first hit as a Salt Lake City Gull. And that's a good piece of hitting right there. Just staying down on that ball, driving it through. And that's a nice double right there. 1 for 1 now with runners on first and second here, facing Yamamoto again. And this time he hits this one to the right side. It gets to the infield. The runner will stay at third, but he does load up the bases. And we do have the 2-1 lead here on the Dodgers today. And Lara with 2 nice base hits. So we'll see if he can keep up this good hitting here in the 5th inning. Now it's a 5-1 lead here for Salt Lake. This time facing Alex Vesia at the on the mound, and that will be a walk. So 3 at-bats, and he gets on base all 3 times. Is now 2 for 2 today, 2 for 10 so far this season, facing Brusdar Graterol. And it's now an 8-4 ball game. A 1-1 pitch over the middle of the plate is driven deep to left field. That is gone. Luis Lara with his first home run as a Salt Lake City ball player. Good sign going forward A slow start for him, but he shows why he's ready for the MLB with this game. 3 for 3 with a walk, and what a game that time from him. So for the rest of this episode, we are going to make a huge run around our organization and really evaluate all the players in our outfield, in our infield prospects, our pitching prospects. We're going to look at everybody here, and it's going to start with really figuring out what we want to really do in the offseason with some of our young talent here in this organization. One thing we have done is we have drafted very well pitching-wise, but that's also opened up opportunities for us to acquire prospects that are fielders via trade. And Alex Ramirez was one of those guys that was not a trade acquisition, but was a Rule 5 draft acquisition. He's been okay this year, hitting around 200 to 220. Now, one thing that I saw out of him is that he's only 23 years old. He's still pretty young, and I saw that his bat did have some potential, but I think he does need to develop a lot more in order for him to really stay at the MLB level. That was just a bad swing, but here his average is at 204, and here he hits one to right field. That one does get down, but even when he does make contact, it's not very solid. So I definitely want to really develop his power in his game, and I think he's going to need about probably a year or two more in the minors to really, make waves at the MLB level at all in order to compete for a starting job. One other guy we have that we did not acquire via the Rule 5 draft, but during the expansion draft, was Henry Davis. Henry Davis is 26 years old, and one thing that I did see in him is that he was 25 when we started this series. I said, hey, he has a lot of potential because of his age, but he has not lived up to the bill at all, and he has not hit well, and he's had really 2 full seasons to really prove it. So in the offseason, after season 1, we signed Riley Adams to a 1-year deal. He's hitting 284 in opportunities that he does get. And I just really want to look at him a little closer because I think that, at age 29, is he a spring chicken? No, but that's still pretty young in baseball terms. I think he's still got a lot of baseball left. So I'm going to give him every opportunity to have the starting job at catcher going into next year. And I think that right now he's probably the better option of the 2 catchers. So Riley Adams is going to get the start for the last 2 months of the season versus right-handed pitchers, which primarily Henry Davis did have for pretty much most of this series. Now let's look at pitching really quickly. Esteban Calzado was our first ever draft pick in this series. He looks amazing at this point. A 2.77 ERA, 1.20 whip at AA. Now I am curious if those numbers would keep up at AAA, but he's got 18 quality starts and he's got a 4 WAR. I mean, you can't get much better, and I do not want to mess with that momentum, so I'm going to keep him down at AA. We're not even going to think about moving him up for September call-ups. Our number 2 draft pick back in season 1 was Calvin Almquist. Now, Almquist was a lefty who did have some potential. Now, he still is pretty good, but I do wonder how he projects as a starting pitcher because his stamina isn't the greatest right now. He is the number 2 prospect in the organization, but I do want to see him develop probably for another couple of seasons, to be honest, in the minors before I consider moving him up. That brings us to a guy that is more of an older prospect in Miracle Macklin. We saw him at the MLB level towards the end of season 1. He had a really good start, but then after about a month, he really started to get shelled, and I thought he started to lose confidence, so I decided to keep him down at AAA this year, and he's having just an okay season. So jumping around a little bit now to a guy that we signed in the offseason, Ryan O'Hearn. We signed him to a 2-year deal to really be a veteran presence with this team, but he has been really shockingly good. I knew he was a good hitter based off of his attributes, but he's hitting over 300. He's slugging 477, and he's just absolutely tearing the cover off the ball this year. And too bad he got injured because he would have been an all-star this year, but since he could not stay healthy, didn't have the at-bats, he did not make the all-star game, and instead we saw Weston Wilson go as far as position players, and then we had Yarbrough also make it to the all-star game. We did acquire Mariano Costo last episode, And I'm gonna say Casto. Mariano Casto is gonna be his name, not Casto. Now, Casto is interesting because I like what he's doing at AAA. He's still developing, so I'm gonna keep him there. I'm not gonna move him up. And I think that he does have the opportunity to be our closing pitcher going into next season. And I think that at 20 years old, he's gonna be 21 next year. This is a nice young guy in our bullpen that's gonna come in and shut guys down. Now, I think the jury's out on whether he's going to be our closing pitcher or not, but I do like him as a definite bullpen arm going forward, and I thought we got good value out of him, trading Chris Taylor away and acquiring him. It seemed pretty, pretty even as far as what both teams were kind of looking for. Now, in the outfield, we have a bunch of young outfielders, which we will talk about throughout this episode. And one is Max Murphy. Now, he's interesting. He's sees potential. He is one of our subscriber prospects. He was drafted in the 5th round, actually, in last draft. I don't know who he got drafted to, but the team that drafted him signed him and then for some reason released him or failed to sign him. So he hit free agency, and he was available, and I ended up scooping him up. So Max Murphy will get his MLB debut here for the September call-ups. He will just get some at-bats because I do really like his contact ratings. So here he is facing the Seattle Mariners, and he hits one down the right field line. That's his first AB at the MLB level, and it's going to be a double for the 18-year-old. I'm so excited for Max Murphy, and I am not in a rush to move him up to be a full-time major leaguer, but I do want to get him some at-bats versus some major league pitching, and that's kind of what we did right there, just getting him some quality at-bats. Here is Amed Rosario, a guy who we signed in the offseason, kind of helping out here this season in Season 2 while our young guys do develop. That one was crushed, but it is foul. So can he straighten this out now? A 1-2 pitch will be drilled in the right center field. Max Murphy rounds second. He will head home as well, and Amed Rosario will bring in a couple of runners here, and we will have a 4-0 ball game, as that's his 24th double of the season. I really brought in Ryan O'Hearn and Amed Rosario really to be the captains of this team for the next couple of years, because I really did see some value in having some older veterans on the squad to help with the development of the young guys. Kind of like Ben Rice, who hits this one well into left field. That one will get through. It will score one, and the second will come through to score, as that's Luis Lara with decent speed at 79. He scores from second, and it's a 6-1 ball game. Now, Ben Rice, I was hoping would learn from Ryan O'Hearn, and Ryan O'Hearn has been all that he advertised to be. I mean, really. And I'm hoping that Ben Rice can pick up on some of those things. But then here's Amed Rosario. Both veterans just hitting the ball well this year. Rosario hits that one for a 3-run jack, his 9th home run of the season. And I'm looking forward to, having him in the middle infield, and he could potentially earn a second contract here from Salt Lake, because I think Rosario is our best middle infielder by far. And right now, I don't have anybody penciled in as being a sure thing in the middle infield besides Amed Rosario. So Rosario has been, a topic of conversation in a lot of trade offers as well. And even the Seattle Mariners offered a trade for Amed Rosario before the deadline. That brings up some other guys in the middle infield, like Andrew Monasterio. Monasterio's interesting because he's not a great fielder. Now, he does have a very high clutch rating, but so far this year, he has not been impressive at all. And I'm not very, very high on him going into the future. Now, he was a guy that, stuck around in free agency after Season 1 for a lot of weeks, and eventually he came down within our price range, and then we signed him. So I ended up having him around, and I like him because he's cheap, but I don't necessarily think he's maybe the shortstop or second baseman or even third baseman of the future at all. That brings up Keeper Rodriguez, who we did sign in the offseason. At 25 years old, I think he still has a lot of potential. Despite him only hitting .220 this year, he's at least flashed when I've played with him. Now, one thing about him is that he's a shortstop, he's a second baseman, a third baseman, or a right fielder. And he also has pretty good defensive attributes. So I really do like his game. I do think he does need some development, but I think that's going to come with just getting some experience. And here he gets one over the middle of the plate, and this one's driven deep. And that one's a dead center home run here on the road versus the Padres. 4-1 Gulls with that home run, 432. He showed off this power in spring training, and I was very impressed with it. And there it is again. And I just, like I said, want to keep developing him. I know he's a good defensive player. I think that offense is going to eventually come around, and he's 25. So I'm going to give him a longer leash than I would some of the older guys in our organization would. So that brings us to Rocky Anderson, kind of an older prospect who has not made it to the MLB level yet. He's played one game. That was back in 2023. But right now, he is just more of a defensive shortstop. Now, for some reason, this game has him making like $4 million, which is crazy. Like, as a prospect, that is just crazy. And I'm going to end up having to like release him and then re-sign him to a cheaper deal, hopefully. But he's a guy to look out for. Now, like I said, his bat does need to come around a little bit more. He does not have that pop on his bat. Now, contact versus left is 64. That's pretty good. But I need him to be more of an everyday player, especially as a shortstop. Shortstops are everyday players. That brings us to another infielder that I am really excited about, Paulo Sawayama, who is one of those guys that right now is kind of like we just saw with Rocky, really good defensively. The bat has to come around a little bit. Now his average is at 211 at the AA level. So I'm going to need him to at least hit 250 at AA in order for him to even get moved up to AAA. So going into next season, he's going to probably remain at AA until he really starts to hit well, and then he'll eventually get moved up. But he is a candidate to be our shortstop of the future. But we'll see what happens with Keibert Rodriguez. I am definitely keeping my eye on his development. He is still 25, and I think that he does have potential to be, an everyday shortstop. But like I said, we don't have great bats in the middle infield. I think Ahmed Rosario is really the only guy that I'm saying that is MLB caliber like bat right now as an everyday player. And finally, that brings us to our final shortstop prospect in Dan Stoddard. Now, I was very curious. He was our third-round draft pick when we drafted a year ago. But look at the power versus left and the contact versus right, +8 and +7 respectively. Like, he is having a really, really good season so far, and he's just interesting here as we get into the month of September. And one thing I really, really like about Stoddard specifically is that he is still an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid. And also, I like his batting stance. Like, I did not choose this batting stance. It's just like an easy to see, easy to hit the ball batting stance. But like I said, that bat does need to come around. Now, I was wondering why the game had him as our top 5 prospect, even though he's just C potential at the beginning of this season. But he has progressed quite a bit from 58 overall to 63, 5 overall points. That's actually really, really good development in his first professional season. Now let's talk about the outfield, because we have a lot of outfield prospects that kind of have question marks around them. Justin Henry Malloy is not a prospect anymore. However, he's a young player at the MLB level, mid-20s, but he has just not shown the consistency with his bat, which really disappoints me. Not every trade is going to work out. We acquired him from the Detroit Tigers, and he has been kind of disappointing, to be honest with you. Like, he has a lot of swing and miss to his game. He does strike out a whole lot. And I think in order to really get some at-bats on this team, you're not going to strike out a lot. I mean, honestly, like, if you strike out, it's going to be one of those things that is going to turn me off very, very quickly, and it's going to cause me to move you down to AAA, AA to get you some at-bats. So I think, in order to really have mainstay at the MLB level, you either got to be hitting for high average, especially as an outfielder, or you got to be really elite defensively. Mike Antico is interesting. I just see him now. He was an exciting player in season 1, but I see him now as just more of a bench bat and a pinch runner more than anything, a guy that fills in on off days. He does have some potential. He does have some pop in his bat at times, but the consistency just isn't there. And I think that he's going to be on our team going forward, because I do really like him, but I think he's just got some developing to do. Now let's talk about our center fielder. And I don't think there's any question at center field. I think that this is a position that is solidified for us for the next few years, and it's Alek Thomas. He was our number 1 pick in the expansion draft, and every time I play with Alek Thomas, he seems to perform very well. Here versus the Rockies in Coors, he hits 2, 1 to right field, 1 to left field, and he just has been very impressive. Last season, he led our team in batting average and OPS. And as you can see, towards the end of season 2, he's on a 10-game hitting streak and hitting over 390 over his last 10 games. So Alek Thomas, like I said, has no issues with his spot here at the MLB level, and he is going to be a guy that's going to be here through the rebuild and probably beyond the rebuild. And here he is facing the Kansas City Royals, riding that 10-game hitting streak, and all we care is about keeping that alive, keeping that a hot streak going. And here he faces Kyle Wright. That's outside, and now that brings it to a 2-2 count here in the top of the second inning. And the hit ball is hit well down the left field line. That gets down. He tries to stretch it for 2, but he thinks about it really quickly, getting back to first. And now his hit streak is at 11. And Alek Thomas, while some of you guys didn't agree with him being our top pick in that expansion draft, I just really, really like his game a lot. And he's continuing to develop, and he's still only like 25 years old. So now our AA season is ending at the Richmond Flying Squirrels level here at AA. And now we get to check out some of our prospects that we haven't highlighted too much in this series, and we're going to start with Calvin Almquist, who was our second-round pick back in season 1's draft. He's having a pretty good year, but like I said, my main concern with Almquist is that his stamina is not great. So is he going to project to be a starting pitcher in the future? I'm not sure, but at 66 stamina, and I'm not sure it's going to get much better than around, the high 60s. I'm not sure if he's going to be a guy that's going to be a starter in the future, but I guess we'll have to just wait and see how he develops. But here he does have his last outing here at the AA level, so we'll just check him out. Here in the first inning, he gets a pop-up that time to short left center field for the first out of the game. Now faces Jace Young at the dish, and he will hit one well to left center, and that one will be extra bases. It gets all the way to the wall and will be a stand-up double. And we'll see if Almquist can pitch out of this situation, because these are the situations that, are going to be important as a young player develops. Facing Daniel Cabrera on the inside, two-seamer will be a swinging strike 3. Now, his fastball does have some velocity. His four-seam fastball does get into the mid-90s. He has a two-seamer, which has the most movement of any pitch in his repertoire. But here in the bottom of the second inning, here's a deep drive to right field. This one will get over the wall in right. It's a home run for a solo shot here for Dylan Dingler, and it makes it a 1-0 ball game. Bottom 3 now, and Almquist just gets way too much of the plate. This one's driven deep to left center field, and it is gone. 445 by Quinn McDaniel. That's his first home run of the year, by the way, off of our number 2 prospect. But Almquist does settle down a little bit, facing Jace Young again. This time he gets him out in the third. And going the rest of the game, he starts to really settle down here. Here's Dylan Dingler, who hit a home run earlier. That one, he's just looking. That circle change up on the inside half. Now facing Quinn McDaniel, a 1-2 pitch in the dirt, a curveball, strike 3. Those 4 pitches are really good. The curveball, the changeup, the four-seamer, and the two-seamer. And he does a good job of mixing them all up pretty well. Here's a deep drive to center field. We thought this was going to be extra bases, but Ezekiel Beltran in center field does run that one down. And Almquist does only give up 2 runs in this outing. He goes through 6, and I do really like what I see from him, but I think I just need to see if that stamina does develop to a higher rating than what it is now. Unfortunately, he doesn't get the run support, and he ends up with the loss in this one, but it was actually a decent outing for him. He did give up 2 big flies, but I'm happy to see what he's doing at the AA level. So as we get towards the end of the month, our AAA season does end, and so does our AA season. Both teams under 500. One thing I do want to emphasize is that it's important for your minor league teams to do well. That kind of shows you the quality of the prospects that you have too. That's something that I like to keep an eye on. But all three levels are under 500 at this point. But the Gulls are now a 60-win team and facing the Rockies, who are at the bottom of the NL West. And with that victory right there, we officially are not going to finish last in the NL West, which is a big accomplishment just after really 2 years of rebuilding. We end up beating them 5-4 in back-to-back games at home. And then we go for the sweep here in game number 3, and we will get it, collecting our 63rd win. That is a 20-game improvement from a year ago, and we still got one more series left of this season. Ryan O'Hearn goes 2 for 4 in that one. Weston Wilson does too. You know, Weston Wilson is just an underrated player on this roster. But now we get into the final series of the season. We end up splitting the first two, losing 0-5 and 3-1. And for the final game, I will not play it, but I will quick manage it. And we will give Emerson Hancock, who's having the best season of all of our pitchers this year at the MLB level, the start today. He is 26. We acquired him back in season 1 before the trade deadline. He has been really, really good for us, and I'm really liking his development. And we will see if he can get the win versus Roki Sasaki. Now, Sasaki is the #1 prospect in baseball at the MLB level right now in real life, and he's actually having kind of a rocky start, to be honest with you, and it's quite an adjustment coming from, you know, Japan over to the U.S. and facing the best players in the world. But here, look at this. We're up 3-0 here versus the LA Dodgers, who are going to run away with the NL West this year. But Emerson Hancock is into the 7th inning, still nothing doing for the Dodgers. It's now 5-0. Look at the offense by the Gulls. And now we go to our bullpen in this 8th inning. We bring in Ryan Yarbrough, who is the all-star for us this season. And he gets through the 8th inning, and we hop in here in the 9th. Now he's facing Mookie Betts with a runner on first base to close this game out. And that one will be a high sinker in a called strike 3 to get Mookie. And we are 1 out away from completing season number 2 and improving on the season, 22 more wins than last. Will Smith has something to say about that, though. That is crushed into the bullpen. That is gone. The 18th of the season here for Will Smith. And we decide to bring in Jin Long Lin, who was one of our subscriber prospects. And he's looking to complete his really full first season at the MLB level. He is a young reliever. We'll see if he can get us out of this one. And the submarine pitcher will get a swing and miss at a 99-mile-an-hour fastball up in the zone, a swinging strike 3. And I am very, very happy with the outcome of this season. Very proud of these guys. They fought this year. We improved a lot. The Dodgers will still go to the playoffs, obviously, but a good way to end this season here in season 2 as Mike Antico went 2 for 4 today. Weston Wilson finishes a strong season as well. And we finished 65-97, which is very, very impressive, to be honest with you. You know, in our division, we were 22-30. Actually, not a bad record compared to last year. And we actually played pretty well all around. We finished 28th in batting average, only hitting .233. That's definitely a point to improve on next year. Slugging, we did go up I believe 20 points, so I'm happy about that. We're still not hitting home runs, though, and that will hopefully change as our lineup will probably change over a lot as we have Terrence Madlock probably entering the lineup next year. That's going to be fun. Stolen base percentage, we were actually 2nd in the league. We were actually dead last in errors. We committed the most errors. That's definitely something to really evaluate here as we look at some of these players too. And then we improved the most on ERA. We're up to 24th. We were 30th last year. And then we were 30th in strikeouts as well. I don't really value strikeouts that highly right now. I will probably later on. But I like the improvement that we had this season. So here is how the rest of the league ended up shaking out. Now, overall, we actually finished with the 5th worst record, which is a major improvement because we were worst by a long shot last year. I think it was the White Sox and I think we're the only 2 teams to have, in the 40s with our wins. But I think that this was like a good year for us. How about the Brewers, though? 99-63, taking the Central. They are dominant so far in that division in this series. But I do want to evaluate all of these players and just kind of evaluate them going into the offseason and just what my plan with them. Ryan O'Hearn is entering the second year of a 2-year contract, but I must admit that I am tempted to try to re-sign him to an extension. It wouldn't be like a very long-term extension. It'd probably just be a 1 or 2 year extension to kind of add another year onto his current contract. I'm definitely debating it because he had an amazing year. And like I said, if it wasn't for that injury, he would have been an all-star. With 385 at-bats, he hit his career high in average, slugged his career high, hit his career high in home runs. I mean, he was really good. Riley Adams ended up getting hurt in those last couple of months, so he only finished with 93 at-bats, but I do want to see more. And I think going into this offseason, I think I'm penciling him in ahead of Henry Thomas because he is, one of those guys that I do really, really like. And I want to see what he can do. 29 years old isn't too bad of an age for a catcher. Alek Thomas improved from year 1 to year 2, going up 17 points with his average. His on-base percentage was the most impressive, though, because he did draw more walks. He did not steal more bases, but he hit for extra bases, especially doubles at a higher clip. He hit 8 more doubles, and I just really, really liked what he did this year, and I definitely want to see him develop even more. Luis Lara, when he got his opportunity late in the season during this episode, hit 259. I mean, these are pretty good numbers, to be honest with you, for a guy that has limited MLB experience. And I think right now I'm not, budging on him not being the starter in right field going into next year. I think he's earned it, especially with the ending to this season. I think right now he's penciled in as our starting right fielder. Max Murphy, it was impressive. Now, I don't want to ruin his development, though. I did want him to get some at-bats for sure, but I think that I still want to develop him a bit more. So next year he will probably start at AAA and see what he can do there versus AAA pitching. And then if he does well enough, maybe he gets a shot at being a full-time MLB player. I talked about Ahmed Rosario a little bit earlier in the episode, and he came as advertised. Obviously not as high of an average as last year. He hit 268, but still a very good player, and he did exactly what I wanted him to do, be a guy that scores runs at the top of the lineup. Weston Wilson, all-star this year, improved on his batting average going from 242 to 251. He had, about 60 less at-bats, but he was a lot more efficient at the plate. He struck out 40 times less than last year. So that's pretty good. And he's very cheap. So I'm excited to bring him back as our starting third baseman. Ben Rice improved also. He hit 245 to end the year. 17 home runs is a career high. I am very, very impressed with this because, like I said, I brought in Ryan O'Hearn to really be a mentor for Ben Rice. And I think that Ben Rice is finally coming into his own. He's finally over 70 overall consistently now at 71, and I think there's a lot of improvement still in his game. Mike Antico is going to be going into age 29 season, but like I said, I still just see him kind of as a bench bat, not much more than that, but he's an exciting player. Keeper Rodriguez, his average did dip down from about 220 to 209 now to end the year, but he is still actually improving with his ratings. So, like I said, I do like him. I do want to give him opportunities to play, and I think he will get that. Alex Ramirez, on the other hand, though, was interesting. We selected him in the Rule 5 draft at age 22. Now he's 23 years old. And looking at his ratings, they're improving, but I think his production isn't there to be getting playing time in the outfield consistently. So I'm probably going to have him in the minors next year just to let him get a year there under his belt. Justin Henry Malloy is going to probably see the same results. He's going to be in the minors next year, only hit 207. That's kind of disappointing. And then Henry Davis. Why did I get his name wrong twice earlier now that I'm remembering? Henry Davis hit 201 this year, and he got worse than 205, which is pretty hard to do. Gabriel Arias was a guy I signed in the offseason too. I thought he was going to, be a better than 200. Didn't end up being the case. I mean, he hit 300 last year in limited at-bats. I guess half of the at-bats he had this year. And we signed him to a 3-year deal. So that's going to be an interesting scenario for him. I don't even know if he's going to make the MLB roster because of how poorly he's done this year. Then Monasterio has also done bad. So I think that middle infield, especially at shortstop, Ahmed Rosario aside, is probably going to be a position battle going into next year. Pitching-wise, though, I definitely think we had a better pitching year than we did offensively. And it starts with Emerson Hancock, who really had a great year. 115 whip, had 15 quality starts. He's still getting better. He's still pretty young, so I do like him in the middle of our rotation. German Marquez was a one-year signee, and at $5.6 million, I just didn't see enough from him this year to even think about re-signing him again. He had a 5.03 ERA, higher than he did at Coors, which is pretty surprising, to be honest. Had 13 quality starts. I just don't see myself bringing him back. Walker Buehler, we have no choice in bringing him back because he is on a 2-year contract. We signed him early in free agency last offseason, but he actually has pretty decent numbers at a 3.96 ERA and a 1.27 whip. Only 11 quality starts, but those actually aren't bad numbers to me. And then Julian Aguirre, who led our team in whip and ERA in season 1, kind of took a small step back in season 2, but actually these numbers aren't too bad. He is still 24 years old. Now, I think that he still does have some developing to do, but he has shown that at least with 2 years starting, like, he can be a bottom of the rotation starter for us. So probably still remain at that number 5 spot in the rotation. Darius Vines, and I think Darius Vines is a big reason why I'm a little hesitant on Calvin Almquist, because Vines has good pitching attributes. However, his stamina is holding him back from being a starter. So he's just probably going to be a long reliever with us. Brian Sammons, we signed in the offseason. Now, he went 3-15. Like, he was bad. As bad as you can get. So I don't even know the future for him, but I just know he's not going to be a starter. He could be a bullpen guy. He could be a minor league guy, even at 75 overall, which is higher than a lot of our other starters. I just don't know with him. Ryan Yarbrough was the only all-star in our pitching rotation or bullpen, and he had a really good year. A former starter for the Tampa Bay Rays, really good with us this year. 1.58 ERA and a 1 whip. The rest of our bullpen was kind of just okay. Diego Castillo had a decent year, though. 1.16 whip, 2.71 ERA. But nobody else really stands out. Everybody else was just kind of, blah. Miracle Macklin got moved up, and he ended up pitching pretty well to end the season. So that's a good sign for him and maybe giving him some confidence going into next year, because he's going to have an opportunity to compete for one of those starting jobs in the rotation. He'll probably be a bottom of the rotation starter if he does make the MLB roster. He and Julian Aguirre will probably be 4 and 5, but he does have to win that job over first. So that's going to do it here for this episode as we end season number 2 and we hop into the offseason. I think the plan is really to go with the youth movement. I think we're going to embrace that and really figure out a plan for maybe some of the expiring contracts we may have in the next 1 or 2 years, but the youth movement is definitely going to be the move. So hit subscribe, hit that like button. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We'll be back for the offseason. Stay tuned. Let's get it. Let's go.